The Kingdom of Kush, originating in present-day Sudan, is one of the great ancient states of Africa. For over 1,000 years, Kush ruled vast territory, which at its height reached beyond modern-day Egypt. In the royal city of Meroe, surrounding the ruins of palaces and temples, lays extensive remains of ancient iron production. UCL Qatar archaeologists have begun studying these remains. During an experimental archaeology festival, a specialist team will attempt to produce iron using ancient methods to better understand the technologies and people of Kush. This is just one of the many huge slag heaps we find here at the royal city of Meroe. And to date, using a combination of kite photography, ground survey and mapping, we've managed to document over 50 such slag heaps just around the north mound of the royal city. And these slag heaps vary from relatively small to some of the huge ones like the one you see behind me here. Some of these slag heaps are in fact up to 8 meters deep. It was here in 2013 that, using a combination of geophysics techniques, we were able to identify the remains of an ancient furnace workshop.
What we have here is an excavation of a workshop which was producing iron. And the way we've excavated it allows us to understand the use of space and the installation of the technological features in this workshop. So to start, we have an entranceway running down the steps into this central pit. And this pit seems to be the working area of the workshop. And around this pit, we have a segregation of space. And in these different areas of the workshop, different activities are occurring. Over here on the eastern side, we have the smelting of the iron ore in a furnace. The furnace is made by cutting a hole, lining it with bricks, and then producing a furnace lining. Running up to the furnace is this ramp. So the smelters would fire their furnace here, people would be operating the bellows around the back end of the furnace, and then we think, given the hard concretion of this floor, that slag, the waste product from this process, was brought out this way. The bloom was taken out of that furnace, and it looks like it was moved over to this side where we have a similar feature, but it's less well constructed, and we think this is a hearth. The hearth was then used to refine the bloom, knocking out all the pieces of slag that were incorporated onto the bloom during the smelting. So what we have is a use of primary production, smelting, through to refinement of the iron, and maybe even production of some form of artifact, like a nail or something usable.
It's probable that one of the reasons Meroe Royal City is situated where it is due to the close proximity of these spectacular geological formations. What we see in these mountains, situated just behind the royal pyramids, are some of the most important natural resources that the people living at Meroe made use of. We have significant deposits of iron ore that they were smelting iron with. We have bands of kaolin, which was essential for their ceramics. And finally, we have the huge quantities of ferrocrete sandstone that they were using to build with. When you stand in a quarry like this and think about the fact that this is just one of dozens of quarries in these hills, you start to imagine how many people must have been involved in quarrying for the stone that was used even for one pyramid, let alone the entire pyramid field, as well as for the palaces, the temples, and the city walls. It's the same when we think about mining for the iron ore. Hundreds of people could have been employed at any time to extract the raw materials from here and transport them several kilometres away to the royal city. Organisation of labour and access to natural resources are some of the key questions we are trying to understand using our experimental approach.
I had a conversation with Jane. I understood that she wanted me to build the type of furnace that they were excavating and that Shinny and Tarcoat had found, and try and make iron in it.
Before the festival, a number of test furnaces are built in the team compound to trial different types of iron ore. In some of these test smelts, an electric blower is used to pump air into the furnace. The furnace is filled with charcoal fuel and lit. Bellows connected to the furnace by tuyere pipes inserted near the base of the furnace pump blasts of air through the burning charcoal until temperatures reach around 1200 degrees centigrade. Iron ore and additional charcoal are then added through the top of the furnace. The temperature is high enough to melt the impurities in the iron ore. This melted waste, which also contains some of the iron from the ore, is called iron slag. The slag drips down through the charcoal to the bottom of the furnace. This slag can be seen in huge quantities at the royal city of Merowe. The air blown into the furnace reacts with the carbon in the charcoal to produce a reducing atmosphere. A chemical reaction occurs, leaving behind iron metal. The iron metal particles gravitate together to form a spongy lump called the bloom. The bloom is then consolidated by the metal workers and then shaped into desired objects, such as weapons and agricultural tools.
I didn't expect much slag, so my first idea was to mix this ore with something that might produce a good runoff. Whether or not this makes iron, I don't think it makes much slag.
Jake breaks open the door to the furnace. Hot charcoal pours out and we wait to see if we've made any iron or slag. A small iron bloom is revealed.
Good knock, Frank. Well done.
So, as usual, we will run through each different group, and if you can just summarise for me what you've done today.
I'm feeling a little more confident about the ores.
Do you have preferences for ore types at the moment?
We're going to start with a mix of the Dolan and the purple stuff that Jake found the last day.
I mean, for me, in thinking about this as a scientific experiment, one of the smelts I would love to be using our acacia charcoal and using our best ore from behind the pyramids. And other than that, the great thing is that we can use the 3 other smelts to change our variables.
Yeah. We now are fairly confident the local ore is pretty good.
So in terms of the scientific aspect of the smelt, Mike arrived today as well, and Hannah arrived today, so very happy to have you both here. This completes the team. Now, it's really important that we all bear in mind at all times that we are working in a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and we need to make sure, as we are the ones hopefully encouraging and inviting lots and lots of people to this site, that we have, to a large extent as possible, things under control in terms of vehicles driving over the site, people walking all over the site, and so on. Great day. Really, really good. So now you can just relax or carry on working. I think most people are going back to work. All right, thanks guys. We're here today in a pottery workshop in modern day Khartoum, and the bellows that the potters have produced have been made in a very traditional manner, and a manner in which we can imagine the people at Merowe also produce their bellows. So the clay has been extracted from the ground. People have been stamping on this clay to remove the air. It's been mixed with water, and what they've done is they've used a potter's wheel operated manually with their feet to slowly turn the pots and create the bellows that we've asked them to make. We used the archaeological record and bellows that were excavated previously in the 60s and 70s to create the model for our bellows. The bellows were presumably covered with an animal skin to allow them to be pumped. Jake will have to make this, experimenting with several versions and being creative in finding sources of material. The pipes through which air is pumped from the bellows into the furnace, called tuyères, will be made using Nile River clay and additions of kaolin clay. For 1,000 years, the iron smelters of Meroe specifically selected the Acacia nilotica tree to make their charcoal for iron smelting. This has to be chopped into small pieces. The iron ore would prove to be an ongoing challenge. There were different types available in the local hills. Which one had the Meroitic smelters used? Several would be tried and tested. First, the ore would have to be crushed into a small size, roasted in a pit fire to prepare it, and then ground into finer particles suitable for smelting.
So far we have two general kinds of ore. And within one of those ores we have lots of variation. So we just kind of want to get an idea of which is best and whether it's good enough to for the smelting. For the bloomery smelting we need a very high iron content. That's one of the limitations of the ancient technique. This one, from the tentative analyses that Mike did last month, this is richer in iron than this, but has some impurities we don't like. So I just wanted to look at them, see how they melt. Then I'll take the crushed samples and wrap them up in a little crucible, just like make a little dumpling out of clay and mixed with charcoal, and close it up. We'll put it in the fire for 20 minutes, half an hour, and that'll reduce the iron out. Hopefully, not all of it, well, hopefully all of it. And then I'll have a bead. The idea is I'll have a little bead of iron, and then I can weigh that and get an idea of what our iron content was. Nice little bead of iron. So that looks like a pretty good yield, better than any of the other two. So I'll go weigh this.
What I'm trying to do here is to check the results of the smelts that we did, the test smelting, and try to document them, taking photographs using the portable microscope here.
So today, Lee had a eureka moment, which was very, very exciting.
Just to prepare to figure out how much charcoal we needed and how much ore and charcoal we were going to need for each smelt, I just sat down to calculate the volume of that cone, and it was kind of shocking, the volume of charcoal, of fuel that this shape would hold.
Throughout the experimentation process, many different ideas were discussed. One of the most important aspects of an iron smelt is the way in which the iron ore and charcoal are added to the furnace. Based on the design of the Meroitic furnace and on our collective experience, we assumed that the furnace would first be filled with charcoal, and once this had burnt down, charcoal and iron ore would then be added continuously throughout the smelt. Lee's concern is that by applying this model to our much bigger, dome-shaped furnace, we would consume too much charcoal, create a less efficient smelting environment, and theoretically produce a bloom that would be too big to manage. This led Lee to question, how then could this Meroitic dome furnace work? Could it be that instead, the furnace was filled once with layers of ore and charcoal before being lit, and that no further materials were added as the smelt progressed? It was agreed that one of the experimental smelts could be used to test this new hypothesis.
This is by thinking about the Meroe design that this is a totally different approach to charging a furnace than the northern ones that we are familiar with.
So what he's come up with is a hypothesis that completely blows apart our traditional way of thinking about how people would have been smelting at Merowe. It's a really interesting idea, and because we're about to do 4 experimental smelts or 5 experimental smelts, we'll be able to test this hypothesis, and this could give us an absolutely fundamentally new way of thinking about the way that they were making iron at Merowe, why they were so successful at making iron at this site, and why they seem to have continued to use the same method for over 1,000 years. So the original top came up to what?
It's here. I'm going to bring it up to here. I just want to work them in. That's
Everything that's here is what I'm using, right, Jake, for bellows?
everything what?
I'm using these bellows that are here. Are there
Yes,
any?
So Jane, they're thanking you for recreating the ancient heritage of iron smelting. So they're very happy as well to be a part of it.
Good, I'm glad they're happy.
Well, it's right.
Another pre-festival test is carried out, this time using a dome furnace similar to the one we will use during the festival. Another ore is to be tested. For the first time, the hand-pumped bellows will be used, providing the team with an opportunity to practice.
Blowing. Good. Stop, man. Over.
This time we have a more positive result. In amongst the hot charcoal is some iron and some slag. This is still very different from the archaeological slag, but it's a good step forwards in preparation for the smelting festival itself.
This is iron right here, Jay. Right? I think that's. I think. We'll see.
All the different ingredients. I mean, this is the first time with this clay, first time with the bellows, first time with this ore.
Everyone is working way above and beyond. There's so much activity and different things going on, and everyone's working together so well as a team. So look now what we've managed to achieve in just over a week. Well done, everyone. Really, really great work. Back to work. Mohammed Ahmed is one of the head men in the village of Hamadab, and he has helped archaeological teams who are living and working in Hamadab for the last 10-12 years. And the whole concept of the community engagement is that people come to the smelting festival and they learn about the history of iron production in Sudan and what we're doing and why we're doing it, and they get to see the iron smelting in action, because this is the best way to really understand what iron smelting is. We want to invite the universities, a number of schools in the area, which is where we really need his help, as well as the blacksmiths in Kabushia and any other people.
I was just wondering if we could explain to Kamal that we've come over to ask him if he would kindly come with us to celebrate the Iron Smelting Festival at the Royal City. And hopefully he can come along on the special day, the opening ceremony on the 25th, because we would like to see him there. I've spent the last few weeks, for example, going to the local schools in 3 different areas that we decided to focus on. Again, there are a lot of people who live in their communities surrounding the archaeological sites, and we would love to have everyone come, but given the constraints of time in particular, for this occasion, this first occasion, we've had to be quite specific. blacksmith colleagues of his to come to the opening ceremony.
لازم المدرسة بالنسبة لنا نعمل نشوف صخر الحديد فيه.
So what we have here is a traditional blacksmithing workshop, and this is exactly the kind of working environment that we can imagine the iron producers at Merowe were also working in. So we have the hearth here with bellows. The iron is heated in the hearth and then moved to the anvil where it's hot worked. There's all kinds of rasps and files that are then used to create all of the different tools that are being made here, mainly I think for agricultural purposes. And what we see here is exactly the sort of thing we're trying to replicate. So for example, with the anvil, it's set into a big wooden post. This is the kind of thing that we want to do. And one of the ideas is that these local blacksmiths will come to the iron smelting festival and try to work with the iron that we make from our smelting furnace. So Taj, for the smelting festival at the Royal City of Merowe, we've already constructed a furnace, and what we need to do is we need to dig out very shallow, only like 30-40 centimetres, not difficult. So we're going to dig this out in a rectangle using the same dimensions as our archaeological workshop. So we need to dig it out, and then at the other end we're going to build an area for the smithing, which Lee will help us design because this end was not preserved very well. In addition to the furnace workshop space, it is necessary to construct a shelter to provide shade for the team. To protect the site, geophysical surveys were used to ensure no underlying archaeology was affected by the construction work. And plans were laid to control visitor access and movement during the festival. Large tents were positioned around the site. The education tent provided a forum for visitors to learn about the Kingdom of Kush and iron smelting. Other tents provided a shady space for guests and musicians. It's day one of the smelting festival, and the first bus of local school children arrives. One of the biggest things about the Kingdom of Kush was the iron production. They made iron using the rocks from behind the pyramids. First of all, they're going to have a look at all of the different displays around the room, because all of these things are what you need to make iron. So they
الفرن ده بيجيبوا حام بيحطوه يلا بالاخرام دي في محلات الانابيب دي بيطلع المخلفات دي.
Throughout the day, more school children and other visitors come to learn about the ancient iron smelters of Merowe and Sudan's industrial heritage.
زمان من 2000 سنة كانوا المرويين كانوا هم أسياد الحديد، وهم كانوا ناس عندهم علم كبير بإنتاج الحديد.
Thank you very much for coming. We're very, very pleased to see so many of them here.
الناس يعني سهروا الحديد بكميات كبيرة حتى هو طبعا ظاهر هنا ده أكبر يعني جبل بالنسبة لي يعني في أفريقيا إنه اتوجد بالنسبة لنفايات الحديد، وهي يعني جبال كده صغيرة سوداء دي كلها نفايات الحديد.
قبل 2000 سنة جدودكم لقوا الحجر اللي فيه الحديد ده وصهروه وطلعوا منه الحديد واستعملوا منه الأسلحة والمعدات بتاعت الزراعة زي المنجل والنجام. المهم في الموضوع إنه نحن المفروض نعرف التاريخ بتاع جدودنا، وقبليها المفروض نعرف بلدنا اتكونت كيف، تركيبتها كيف، الثروات اللي فيها شنو، ونحاول نستغلها.
إذا بلشنا ننفخ بالكير أو بأكثر من كير راح يعطينا حرارة أكثر. فكله شكل المعمل ده الفرن كله إحنا عم نحاول نسوي كيف المرويين كانوا بيسووا عشان نعرف هم العلم اللي عندهم كان إيش. تمام؟
Have an opportunity here to see how it might actually have happened and to see people actually engaged in the process of smelting iron, and I think it's really exciting. It brings an element of life, of human interaction into what otherwise can be, for a non-specialist like me, a bit of a kind of dead subject. And I think it's fascinating and exciting, and it's obviously going to bring a lot of new knowledge and detail and understanding of the process. So I think both from a kind of scientific point of view, from an human interest point of view, from engagement with the community, it's a really great experience.
Throughout the festival, it proves important to provide a rhythm for the bellows operators to follow.
When there's a busload of women, they might like to order it.
They want to do it.
If they want to do it.
You're providing it now. Everybody just got it.
As the first day of the smelting festival wears on, we have no idea what we will find inside the furnace. As Jake opens the furnace, iron bloom is clearly visible. Lee begins to work the bloom to remove the slag.
اللي طلع معنا هون مش النتيجة اللي احنا متوقعينها، يعني مش 100%. اللي احنا متوقعين انه يكون افضل كمية من الحديد اللي هو اقرب للمنطقة اللي بالوسط هنا.
The first festival smelt produces a reasonably good size iron bloom. Lee works the bloom in the blacksmithing forge, heating and hammering it into an iron bar. He will make a number of iron objects from this over the course of the festival. So first of all, well done everyone. It was a fantastic day, I think. Really, really, really good. So in terms of our community groups, we had 3 buses altogether, didn't we?
Yeah.
How many kilograms of bloom would you estimate? Obviously we'll do this properly, but as a rough guess.
8.
About 8 kilograms of iron bloom?
6.
Let's give it 7. So around 7 kilograms of iron bloom. And we actually did have a good amount of slag as well. So the great thing is we made a nice amount of iron, we made slag. Obviously what we need to do is fine-tune everything so that we're trying to replicate what we're actually seeing in the archaeological records. So we've had a lot of discussions today about how we might adapt and change to produce a nice liquid slag that's going to tap really, really well for the next smelt. But in general it was just such a great day and well done. I'm really, really proud of everyone. I think it just couldn't have gone any better. Jake can, with a drum roll, tell us what we're smelting and how we're going to smelt it for the next 2 days.
Okay, well tomorrow it's the purple, straight through as before, and the next one following on is either the purple or the oolitic.
So if we did the oolitic on Monday, what would you want to do on Wednesday?
On Wednesday would be
I
the extended furnace with whatever choice of ore seemed appropriate after the previous three.
But
because we have the option.
The Monday thing is...
The Monday thing is Lee's hypothesis.
So we're going to test Lee's charcoal hypothesis on Monday?
Yeah.
With a new ore?
Well, depending on what happens.
From my perspective, ore is one of our biggest variables, and I would rather experiment with changing the ore and nothing else, so that we know whatever's happening is more than likely happening because of the change in the ore. A presentation day is held on the second day of the festival. The directors of the National Museum of Sudan, the University of Khartoum Archaeology Department and the Qatar Sudan Archaeology Project attend, along with many other visitors. Lee works the iron we made to demonstrate traditional blacksmithing techniques to the visitors.
Yeah, I'm very glad to be here. This is today's festival, the Iron Smelting Festival. Is a fantastic demonstration of the cultural heritage of Sudan. I didn't know a lot about the Kingdom of Kush and about the Meroites, and today in that sense was very instructive.
سعداء قمة السعادة أن نكون مشاركين في مهرجان الحديد في مروي، والحمد لله اليوم أعاد نفس التاريخ، ونشكر كل البعثة العاملة في هذا المجال على ما بذلوه من جهد، والحمد لله الناس الليلة شافوا بعينهم كيف تم جدادنا القدماء في مروي القديمة استخرجوا الحديد بنفس الكيفية، ولنا الشرف بذلك نحن كسودانيين وكمواطنين في مروي بهذا الجهد الذي تم من هذه البعثة.
First of all, I would like to say thank you all very much for coming to the first Iron Smelting Festival at Merowe Royal City. Most of you probably know that UCL Qatar's research in Sudan is particularly focused on ancient industries, and especially on the ancient iron production industries that formed such a key part of the Kingdom of Kush and life here at Merowe. So by studying this ancient technology, we think it can give a big window into life during the Kingdom of Kush and when this site here was the royal capital. The best way to understand these ancient technologies is to start to do them yourselves. So we're doing experimental archaeology here at the Royal City to try to give us more information about these ancient technologies. So for this smelting festival we have two aims, and the first aim is a very much a scientific aim. And the second aim of this smelting festival is about community engagement, because we understand that it's very important if we have the privilege to excavate and research in a country like Sudan. It's very important that we make our research and our work accessible to everyone. Our blacksmith Lee made for us a Meroitic arrowhead. So it's Meroitic iron made at Merowe, and we're very happy to be able to present this to the museum from the team.
هذا العمل يساهم في التعريف بالحضارات السودانية، أيضا يساهم في رفع وعي المواطنين بأهمية التراث الوطني، يساهم في الترويج للسياحة الثقافية.
Tourism will come and they will discover something new. Then we have another new discovery. This will add economic sector to the community here. So we are working together to promote tourism and to protect archaeological sites in the area.
I think this event, this will be also a very important component of the management of Greater Marawi.
I would like to invite you all to make your way over to the workshop. So thank you very much, and you're very welcome.
عندنا كان في انخفاض في درجة الحرارة، ولكن عم نحاول انه ننسق بين عملية النفخ لحتى نرفع درجة الحرارة، وعم تمشي الامور بنجاح معنا مع تنظيم عملية النفخ. لكن في عندنا شغلة بسيطة اللي هي انه ما عم بيطلع معنا اللي هي المخلفات اللي هي السلاج الخبث، ما عم بتحول لحالته السائلة. مشان احنا جزء من التجربة عم نحاول انه نطلع اللي هو السلاج عشان نقارنه بالسلاج الاخر. للاسف ما عم بيطلع معنا لحد الان. فعندنا جيك لي ومايك عم بيناقشوا اذا شو الاحتمالات او شو الخطط الجايه نسويها في العمليه هاي عشان يطلع معنا اللي هو السلاج.
Lee and Jake begin to open the furnace. Due to the problems we experience throughout the day, we are not hopeful of a good result.
يعني في المرحلة هاي اللي هم شالوا البوابة من مكانها عشان نقدر نطلع اللي هي كتلة الحديد، لأنه احتمال تكون كتلة كبيرة حسب ما احنا شايفين.
حديد too much.
اللي طلع معنا اللي هو حديد فيه نسبة كربون عالية، فهو يعني مش الحديد اللي احنا بندور عليه، لكن انتجنا حديد في النهاية. نسبة الكربون فيه عالية، يعني هو فولاذ باعتبار فولاذ عالي الكربون.
I think it's good for everybody though. This is not easy. That's why we're doing this.
There's not lots and lots of iron ore that you just go and you pick it up and you throw it in the furnace and smelt it. But this was the easiest we could find, and it hasn't worked. So what we can tell is that there's other sources of iron that are really difficult, even more difficult to find, that obviously they were using. So this is a very good experiment because now one of our most obvious ores we can say definitely wasn't the ore that they were using. Tomorrow we'll use a completely different type of ore, and maybe this will make iron and make slag.
We ran 200 kilos of charcoal. That's an insane fuel to oil ratio. Yeah. It's just can't. Yeah, it can't work.
التيم او القصه اللي قامت بالعمل ده يمكن عملت شيء الناس عرفت يعني الحاصل انه الناس كان عندها في يوم من الايام في عصور قديمه عندها صخر الحديد، لكن زي ما قلت يمكن كان غايب على الناس، فيمكن البعثه بذلت مجهود وكان عمل يعني جميل يعني.
Good work. Another fantastic day. I know that we were probably all maybe a little bit disappointed, but really there's no need to be disappointed because we learned some massive lessons today, I think. The purple ore that I've been saying from the very beginning, this is the ore, this is the one, we're going to have beautiful slag and bloom, whatever. That's obviously not right, but it is very complicated, and it was great that there were so many discussions going on about why, what happened, could have happened, and so on. But the important thing is to just debrief briefly, because I know everyone's tired and there's things we need to do, and make a plan for tomorrow. So let's start with team smelting.
But from fairly early on, there seemed to be something quite odd going on. Firstly, the ore was a bit odd, but it was also apparent that even the small change in weather was affecting the rate at which the furnace was speeding up, which has surprised me. So it didn't actually pick up heat as fast as before, and I don't think that actually had anything to do with the ore. That's
I thought that the consumption rate and the heat were good, and if the ore was worth a darn, there should have been slag. So I felt the same way.
To ensure the validity of this experiment and the real scientific value of the experiment, for tomorrow's smelt I want to change as little in the way of variables as possible, and we know we have to try the elliptical.
أنا في اعتقادي إنه هذا المهرجان جميل جدا جدا، لأنه بيذكر المنطقة وبيذكر طلابنا بأنه كانت هنا في هذا المكان بالتحديد منطقة البجراوية ومروي القديمة، وأن هنالك حضارات. فهذه أشياء جميلة جدا جدا، وهو من صميم دراسة هؤلاء الطلاب في هذه المنطقة، لكن لما تكون على أرض الواقع في الميدان أفتكر العمل بيكون معلوم جميل.
فعندنا أكسجين وحديد بالفرن هذا، احنا عم نستخرج الحديد وعم نفصله عن الأكسجين. الاختزال اللي بصير عندنا على درجات حرارة عالية 1400 درجة، سهل عمل الحدادين من خلال الطرقات المتفاوتة هاي. هو طبعا شكله زي الاسنان، بس هو عم بحاول انه يمدده ويخليه رفيع عشان انه يسوي منه ادوات.
It's a really big experience to see something from ancient tradition lively, how it works and how it was constructed in antiquities. A lot of people are coming here from the surrounding and will talk about this in the country and show what they did 2,000 years before, what their knowledge was in ancient times. So this is very good to demonstrate to the public.
فخورين جدا جدا ونعتز بأنه نحن ورثة هذا التاريخ. السؤال الذي قالوا هل كان المصنع ده في أفريقيا في السودان واحد ولا في دولة ثانية في العالم؟
We have Rwanda, where I've worked before, Tanzania. So in many different places in Africa there was iron smelting.
سعيدة جدا إني أكون ضمن الناس اللي حضروا مهرجان إعادة استخراج الحديد في مروي هنا، واليوم نحن قمنا شفنا إعادة تجربة تاريخية قديمة، وأكثر شيء يمكن أنا يعني لفت نظري حضور الناس من المنطقة، الناس البسيطين ناس المنطقة.
We have liquid slag inside the furnace for the first time during our experiment at this location. So this is a big breakthrough for us. This is fantastic news. As Jake opens the furnace, for the first time we see iron slag dripping through the charcoal. Fareed, can you explain to them that we've got the fluid slag? Oh nice, look at that.
Break that front piece off and it'll break that whole thing. Yeah. Well, that sounded good.
جزء من هاي راح يكون الحديد.
No, the iron in there somewhere.
Oh, that's what the pit is for. لا 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 ما تاكل كارو.
No. Wow. Okay, all that, we want to knock a bunch of this stuff off. There's our balloon piece right there. We don't need to cut it, I don't think.
Okay.
That should be something, right?
Just lift it up when you show it's the balloon and show it to the people.
This is the best part. It's getting
بالنهاية يعني بعد كل التجارب هاي طلع معنا الحديد فالجماعة الفريق بيستاهل تخفيض.
What a great day. So we made iron, we made slag, we even had a little bit of runny slag. This is just fantastic. Let's debrief. Jake, how do you feel today went?
Well, I think it went very well, chiefly because for all those people who came, they saw everything you could hope, and I think it was very exciting for them. So I think that was the best achievement, really. And we've also learned more about the furnace and another of the local ores, so that's good too.
I think it went exactly as predicted based on the plans last night. We got a positive result from the ore, which was good, and we lowered slightly the reducing conditions and got a slightly less sticky slag. So I think everything went perfectly.
Based on the successful results of the previous day's smelting, Jake decides we should use the oolitic ore for our final smelt. We head back to the hills to collect more of this particularly difficult to find iron ore. Well, we had a very exciting morning. So we went to collect our iron ore from the hill as normal. And we arrive and there's this old man who happens to have arrived at the same time to collect the bat droppings from the caves, at the top, the quarries at the top. Yeah. And so we were talking to him and he said to us he knows where the ancient mines are. There was just something about him that I thought maybe we should just give it a go and see what happens. So he came in the car and we drove quite far. And I was thinking in my head, oh no, this is such, I explained to Solomon what a wild goose chase was. We were driving far, climbed up this mountain, and I am pretty sure we just found the ancient mines of Merowe. So this is what they look like. Okay. So on top of this hill, dozens and dozens of these depressions that have subsequently, and in between all of the spoil that they've excavated out.
So they're like little bell pits,
but
probably.
quite. I mean, look at them. There's dozens of them across this hillside, and it goes on and on and on and on. Oh yeah, but there's a lot of me walking around going, "This is unbelievable! This is unbelievable! This is unbelievable!" All of the different ore that we've been looking for is present there.
So you're gonna get Frank to get all the satellites.
Oh yeah, this is gonna now have to be mapped, documented, 3D modelled, studied as much as possible. Like, this is a whole new layer to the research. People since Shinny and Talcott, or even before, in the early 1900s, were speculating about where the saurians come from. And the hypothesis is, it must just be behind the pyramids, but we've really struggled. A good day, but typical when we've only got one more smelt left.
That's all right, because this smelt is not about the ore, it's about the process, which is something completely separate from the ore.
Good. And it's always the way, it's the same on an excavation. On the last day, you always find the best things. So the idea is we will charge the furnace with charcoal and ore, but you'll add ore as well throughout the process.
Nope.
It's all just going to go in, and then we're going to light it.
We're going to put in, it should just fill right up to the top, and then just start pumping.
And we're going to run the bellows right from the beginning. We're not going to use the concept of natural draft. It's all going to be bellows powered. So we're basically changing tacks tomorrow with everything we've learnt and all of the ideas that we've been thinking about, and we're going to go for it and see what happens. Because this was the whole point of the last smelt. What do we know? What do we think?
Let's be realistic. There's a lot of unknowns that we're jumping into, and any one of them could mess us up. So
it's true. So
manage our expectations, I think. 3 hours, nothing but tap slag, and a perfect bloom.
The final smelt aims to test Lee's hypothesis about layering the ore and charcoal before lighting the furnace. A sand mix lining was also added inside the base.
May I suggest, if you want to leave a patch as a test case, instead of doing half as a test case, try just a small, a quarter or an eighth, something that you can identify. But the goal is to test what happens to the lining, in this case, under high temperature.
Thank you because you invite us again in the Royal City. We is very happy because we see your discovery succeeded. We is very happy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Can I thank you?
Well, thank y'all for coming and being interested enough to come twice.
And we hope we can make something to honour the people who were here long ago, because this is a very beautiful and special place.
At last, liquid slag flows from the furnace. This is the closest we have come to replicating the archaeological slag remains. So Solomon, when they leave, they have to go this way.
Thank you very much.
We can just leave the hot ceramic this down here.
Lee removes material from the furnace. On examination, this proves to be mostly iron slag and, disappointingly, very little iron.
The lining that I put in this morning, or I'm thinking that it's a lot lower than that. That means this is the point at which the lining must
Well done, thank you. You all did a brilliant job. So thank you very much. Lee, as head smelter for the day, how would you describe today? How do you think everything
Well,
panned
I
out?
was, of course, tremendously disappointed that I didn't get any nice iron out of it, but I was really happy to see some actual running slag and furnace slag that looked more like what we were looking for. So, good first start, but we need to work on the recipe.
Yes, I agree. Jake, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I agree too, and I think it was, although it was disappointing, we didn't actually get exactly what we wanted. I think we made quite a lot of progress, and it's we've moved on. I feel we've definitely, this was the right direction, and there are a lot of issues to consider about the lining, which must be important. And why it's important is we still don't quite know, whether it's to do with the ore or to do with the arrangement of the 2 years or what. That's still quite a big issue, but I think we're definitely moving forward.
Combining the results of all of those smelts together, we've like you say, we've progressed so far and we've learned so much, and I think we're in a really good position to move forwards.
And then we have something for you from all of us.
And you inspired all this, and I'm going to ask you if you could sit directly under that light just for a moment. And since you're responsible for making the first iron for 1500 years or who knows,
Right.
something Princess.
That's absolutely amazing. When did you make this?
Whenever you want there.
Oh my god, I love it.
I have to adjust it, obviously.
Oh, that's by the worst. Is this out of iron that we made?
Yeah.
Is it really?
That's iron from the first smell.
Wow, that's just so amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. Oh. Yeah, we need to make sure it fits tomorrow. Samples of all materials were systematically collected throughout the smelting festival. Along with the many archaeological samples excavated by the team, these are now undergoing analysis in the laboratories at UCL Qatar.
Comparing the archaeological samples with the samples produced during the smelting festival allows Jane to reach a much more detailed understanding of how the ancient smelters were producing iron and how this may have changed over time.
We are slowly beginning to reveal how Meroitic iron smelters made tons of iron that was so fundamental to the growth and power of the Kingdom of Kush. The results are contributing to our increasing understanding of the social, political, economic and environmental circumstances during this key period in Sudan's history. We still have a long way to go, but we're confident that, with the new data provided by the Smelting Festival experiments, we are closer to revealing these ancient technologies than ever before. As a legacy of the Smelting Festival, a small information point was created around the furnace workshop. Here, at the royal city of Merowe, people come to learn about the iron smelters of the ancient kingdom of Kush.